Oh, God. Hi, Elizabeth. Good morning. Let's see how many people we have on today. Hi, Elizabeth. Right. So while we wait for the others, that's good. We've got a few things to talk about today. I had some questions on the email, so let's open those up. Okay. So a couple of questions for Tori. That's great. Good. I think I was a little bit early with, which is so unlike me. I'm not usually that prompt starting the Zoom meeting. I'm usually like, okay, I've got 30 seconds, quick, turn it on. So that's fine. We'll just wait for everybody to get in, and then we'll start. Morning, Tori. How are you?
Good morning, Caroline. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, it's been one of those weeks. So feeling a little bit frazzled, but you know, I feel the alcohol and the drugs are working well today, so that's fine. Yes.
Excellent. That's what you need. Have
yes.
you got water?
I've got, yes.
Oh, that kind of. We've not had any water in the taps for the last 3 days, so it's a bit like camping at home.
Oh no! Why is that? What happened? It's been pouring with rain.
I know. It's a crazy thing. There's water outside. Yeah, we've got the whole of Wantage has been off the mains for a few days.
Wow. Okay. Talk about timing.
I know.
Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a few things to go through today. I'll give it another 30 seconds. I've got a couple of furlough questions for Tori, which were, and I'm just trying to remember about I think it was more about the claims for the flexible furlough, that whether you should be doing them on a week, if we can change a flexible furlough weekly, can we claim weekly even if we're paying them monthly, or is it better to then pay them, do the claim monthly as we've been doing?
Oh, okay. So I'm not sure if we've been told either way on that. What I do know is that you can't make any claims ahead into the after the 1st of July. So from now until the 1st of July, we can only make claims for what's happened up to that point.
Yeah.
And then from the 1st of July, you can make claims for anything from the 1st of July onwards. So
yeah.
up until now, we have been making claims 2 weeks in advance. So, you know, maybe you're going to run your payroll around now, perhaps, forward run it, make the claim, and then pay your staff at the end of June. You won't be able to do that
after the 1st of July.
Exactly. So after that point, I'm assuming that we're still going to have to do the 3-week period, which is what we were doing earlier. So claims of 3 weeks at a time.
It didn't say in the guidance I read. It said that you could do it on a weekly basis, and that you could claim 4 times a month.
Fine.
Or up to 4 times a month. So I suppose for the weekly paid people, yeah. So okay. The other one that I had, yes. So we have the clients put people on furlough now. They've been on furlough before, so they will qualify for furlough, but they've gone on furlough now. But that means that the 3 weeks, and this is a bit I really didn't know. So it's supposed to be now 3 weeks that you claim for, but it will only be 3 weeks if it goes into July. So so at the end of June, you'd be claiming for 2 weeks and then 1 week in July. I'm just like, okay, I'm not quite sure about that.
Yeah, so our understanding is that that's what you do. So you make the shorter claim, but it has to finish at the 30th of June.
Yeah.
So you could do that claim now, run it up to the 30th of June, because we've got less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then on the 1st of July, you could do the claim for the week that falls into July.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
And because it runs into a 3-week period across, then you're safe.
Then you're safe. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Cassie. Haven't seen Cassie yet. Hi. So changes to furlough. The guidance came out last well, Friday evening, and then Saturday morning, I mean, you know, probably around midnight, doesn't make any difference. The biggest change is obviously the furlough amount, and what I realised, which is not crystal clear, and I'm just from the guidance, and I'm just wondering whether HMRC are hoping that people will trip up on this and then they'll get some more money back. I don't know. So at the moment, you are able to claim at 80% of the salary. You don't have to top it up. You just have to pay the 80%, and you get back your employer national insurance and pension contributions. That is the same in July. Okay. From the 1st of August, you can't claim back the employer national insurance and pension contributions, but you still get the 80% back. Fine. That's all really straightforward. In September, the government contribution goes down to 70%, but for your staff to still qualify for furlough, you have to top it up to 80%. You can't just pay them the 70%. And there is more of a risk on this because the staff will know what they've been paid. Okay, so it was in the past 3 months, it seemed like an eternity that we've been going through. It's always been, okay, what is the risk if you do this wrong? What is the likelihood of you being found out? And for most things, to be honest, it was fairly low because it was chaos. Now, going forward, certainly from the 1st of September, staff will know what they are supposed to be on. There's a lot in the media about this. If you try and pay them 70% rather than topping up to 80%, they are going to inform on you via the HMRC advice line. Okay, so you need, and that's when you get audited, and then you have to pay fines and da da da. Okay, so this is something that you need to, and this is what me and Tori have been saying from the beginning, is you need to know your numbers. Because if you have been saying, I will keep you on furlough till the end of October, thinking that you would only have to pay them what the government did and they would be cost neutral, actually, they're not. And you need to know whether you've got enough cash reserves or even cash flow, if you're lucky enough to be open again and trading, to pay that extra 10%. It's not a huge amount, but it is money, 10% plus then 20% in October. And that's what you need to be looking at now, because if you do need to do restructuring and redundancies, you really should be doing them now with your business head on, while you can get 80% back, because you're going to have to top up notice period to 100%. So if you do it in September and October, you're going to have to top up by 30% and then 40%. So it makes it more expensive. Now is the time to do it. You can always change your mind later on and offer them the job back again. That's not a problem. But if you're in any doubt, you need to be talking it through, one, with your accountant to check you've got the right figures, and then two, with an HR advisor, preferably us, I'm just saying. But it doesn't have to be us, but you need to be talking it through now and getting it done, because if you are going to do restructuring, you're going to need a 1 to 2 week lead in before you can actually start that process. Okay, because there's a lot of and this is what we're discovering now, the number of people who come to say, yeah, I've got it all sorted, can we send out the letter today? It's like, no, show us what you've got. And they're not clear on what their organization was like before and what they want it to be. They don't have the job roles. They're just saying, oh, well, I'm just going to make that one person redundant. It's like, well, that might be the end result, but we've got to put everybody at risk to start off with. You've got to follow the right process, even if it's a little bit of a box ticking exercise, to make sure it's a fair and reasonable process to protect yourselves from unfair dismissal claims. So if you are thinking about restructuring, allow at the moment 5 weeks start to finish, and then put that into your calculations to say how much money you have and what you need to be doing. Okay, we are going to, in 2 weeks, we're going to go through the full restructuring session that I did. It is on YouTube, the restructuring session. So if you look for Gap HR Services Limited, you'll find all of the videos are on there now, and there is one that is about restructuring, but it's two about restructuring, one for the golf clubs, one for private sector, and you can look at that again, but we will go through it again, and we will be able to answer your questions again at our session in 2 weeks' time. So that one is going to be concentrating on restructuring at that point. Okay, right, let's just see what's in the chat at the moment. Yeah, so Liam's asking, when we start paying the national insurance and pension contributions, does that continue indefinitely? Yes. So that honeymoon period is gone, that payment holiday's gone from the 1st of August. You then have to pay your contributions as usual. You do get your employment allowance of £4,000. Depending on how many people you've got, that might already be gone. But I'm just saying you've got that as a backup to pay for that as well. Okay. flexible furlough. Yeah, so flexible furlough from the 1st of July, you can have them back to work part-time or even full-time. They can do full-time 1 week, they can be on furlough the next week, they can then do 50% of their hours and they can be on furlough again. So it can change from week to week, and you just need to let them know the week before what the next week's going to be. This is when you need to give them, if you think there's going to be issues, you need to give them as much warning as possible. So that now is the time to be having the conversation with people saying, okay, from the 1st of July, I would like you back on these sort of hours, and then see what they come back with. We have generally had positive responses. There have been a couple of people, generally with good reasons, that they don't want to come back. Either they've got childcare or they're in extremely vulnerable groups. We would strongly recommend leaving those for the time being, because there are potentials for discrimination claims if you put them under pressure to come back to what they consider to be an unsafe environment. Okay, but everybody else, they should be coming back, and if they don't want to come back but they're not in those two groups, then they were on unpaid leave rather than furlough. So that, again, it's to make it clear to them, it's like, no, it's not whether it's furlough or working, it's unpaid leave or working. That's what it's going to be from the 1st of July. Okay. Right, holidays. So this is a little bit of deja vu. I'm just going to say, we've been saying this for 3 months. You absolutely can get them to take their holiday while they're on furlough. On the website is the letter for you to use to put them on holiday. So if they've got 5 days holiday to take, you have to give them 10 days written notice of that. Okay. It has to be that double that length. You can't just say you have to take all your holiday in July. That isn't enough. Okay, it has to be how much notice, so you can prove you've done the right thing. And you have to pay them 100% for that holiday, but obviously you get the 80% back. So you need to be planning that they've taken all their accrued holiday, certainly by the end of August, where you're only having to pay the 20% top up and you're getting 80% back from the government. So you need to be on top of how much they've accrued, how much they've taken, what there is still to do. If in their contract it says 20 days bank holiday, 20 days bank holiday, that'd be nice, 20 days holiday and 8 days bank holiday, then they are deemed to have taken the 4 days bank holiday during lockdown. Okay, they can't carry that forward, but you do have to have paid them at 100% for those 4 days. So if you haven't done that, you need to go and make a payroll adjustment for that. Okay. So Kenneth, okay, so I think this is a Tori question. Can you see Kenneth's question, Tori?
Yeah, hang on, give me 2 seconds. You can only make 4 claims. How does it work with mopping up days at the end and start of the month? As I understand it, each scheme now is a distinct month, so we would be looking at 5th, 12th, 19th, 26th and 31st. I think the question, Kenneth, is can you have a more than 7-day claim period? Because what I think that's what you're trying to ask. I'm not quite sure about these extra dates you put at the bottom, but what I would do is I just, at the beginning of the month, I'd add on your, so for example, do a claim up to the 9th and do a 9-day claim, and then do your weekly claims afterwards so that it falls into 4. And then again, have a longer claim at the end of the month if you need to do that to mop up anything extra. Nothing says that the claim, we don't have a specific length of claim period prescribed, so you can choose how long that period is in order to get it to fit into 4. Does that make sense? Is Kenneth, if you wanted to unmute and ask that directly, Kenneth, feel free. Yes, it does. Awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So yes, you can flex how long those periods are. There's no prescribed amount. So don't worry that you'll only get 28 days and you'll have to lose 3 if it's a 31-day month.
Okay. Brilliant. I've got another one for you, Tori.
Yeah.
They've paid furloughed employees the new national minimum wage from April. And HME says we should have paid the old national minimum wage. Yes, you should. What do we do to recover the money in June and refund HMRC? So what is the steps to actually do that? Because it's a furlough thing, isn't it?
Well, I might just ask you on this, Caroline, that the legality of doing that. You know, if you change to the new national minimum wage and written that into a new contract with your employees, then to tell them you'd like the money back, I think could be incredibly awkward.
Well, the tricky thing is that if they're not what they said at the beginning of furlough is that if it's The furlough payment is only at the old national minimum wage. It doesn't increase, no pay rises apply, nothing applies. It's what they were paid as of February 29th. Now, the guidance in between then and now got very grey, and we could only find one reference to that. Now, with the flexible furlough, it's actually become crystal clear again. It's the furlough rate is what they were paid in the last pay period before March the 19th. So it's what they were paid in February. So the reading I have on that is that if they're working, they absolutely do get the new minimum wage and any pay rises. But for the furlough calculation, you should be using the old minimum wage, which sounds really weird, but okay, that's what it is. And my thinking is that if they've paid the employees too much, that would be an overpayment, and they can claim it back. So
so what in that situation, what I would be doing first up is I would be rerunning all my payrolls. So you're going to have to roll back to the beginning of the year, rerun the payrolls with the correct amount, and resubmit corrected RTIs. So that's the fixing the payroll bit. Then to correct the overpayment with HMRC. So there are two ways to make corrections now for the furlough part of the reporting. If you have if you've underdeclared, you add it on to your next return. So we were being told you're not going to do that. They've changed that guidance. So the guidance now is if you've underdeclared, then you add it onto your next claim. There's a special box they've added in for you to be able to do that, and you pay the extra money over. If you have, if it's the other way around, so HMRC owes you money back, you have to contact them directly. You cannot do it through your claim, because what they're saying is if you're going to say that that's what's happened, they're going to do extra checks and look into what's happened there. So you should expect that you're going to have probably quite a light touch investigation, I would suggest, because you're going to say to them, we used the wrong rate, national minimum wage, and I'm hoping that the inspector at the other end will say, oh yeah, that happens, I understand that. And then they'll do a refund, I think, directly back into your bank account. But you're not going to be able to do that within a digital process. It's going to have some manual intervention. So you may just want to weigh up, if you're talking 2 or 3 people and you've paid them by a number of pounds in the month, you might want to weigh up the time that's going to take with what you're going to get back. If you're talking about a big payroll, definitely go ahead and do it. But just, if it's going to be 30 or 40 pounds difference overall, I'd be tempted to leave it.
Sorry. Okay. So the other ones, I think the other ones at the moment, where are we? Chelsea. Oh yeah, so that's it. Yeah, so if people are on national minimum wage, they're at work, they get paid the new rate since the 1st of April, but the furlough rate is the old rate still going forward. They're not doing pay increases, probably because they're aware that people might have said, oh, but I gave them a pay increase on the 1st of June of £10,000 and let's use that for the furlough. No, it's not happening. So it's whatever was their pay rate as of the 29th of February for most people. That is what you're using to calculate your furlough payment. Okay. Right, so what else we've got? So this is restructuring as well, the question. If we're terminating contracts for employees under 2 years, will these number counted as redundancies? Yes, so the key thing about when you're doing redundancies is that if you're making more than 20 people redundant, then you have to follow a longer process. It's a 45-day process. You have to have employee representatives. You have to consult. There is a really detailed process you have to follow. It's more onerous and difficult, and it's just jumping through a few more hoops. So if you have in total with the 0 hours people, well, 0 hours, so the people under 2 years, more than 20, you are going to have to err on the side of caution, because anybody of those people being made redundant could say, actually, you didn't follow the fair process because those under 2 years were made. The ones under 2 years have no claim against you, but the ones over 2 years do, and they may claim, actually, it should have been the full process because you got rid of the other ones because of redundancy, not because of poor performance. That's the thing. And it would be difficult to justify putting poor performance into a termination letter right now because most people haven't been working. So they would say, well, that's just fake. And you don't want to be having that discussion at £350 an hour with your lawyers, I'm just saying. and this is quite more of a technical one, might do the separate, but I'll read it out. If we're making redundancies for 2 or more different limited companies, but they have the same management and control, will all redundancies across all companies count to determine the consultation period? Or each company redundancy numbers counted separately? Employee contracts mentions we can move them to another sister company as per requirement of business. Yes. No, you can't. So you can't move them unilaterally. That's a TUPE transfer. You have to follow processes for a TUPE transfer. So you can't do that. You can put what you like in the contract, but it doesn't mean it's enforceable. And then the limited companies, we'd have to see what the level of the same management and control is. Because if it is exactly the same management team on both, then you would have, and again, this is the thing, you don't want to be paying your lawyers to argue that you are 2 separate entities at £350 an hour, or if you're a barrister, paying a barrister £5,000 a day to argue that. So usually you would try and treat them as 2 separate ones, but what is the worst case if it was treated as one? So, but that sounds very specific. So Rohit, if you want to talk to me, I know we are talking anyway, we can go through that and see what the actual technicalities are of the restructuring, okay? The other thing that's come up, if you've got anybody who tells you now that they're pregnant, they've had a lot of time on furlough, I'm just saying, you run out of things to do, box sets only get you so far, and that they're now pregnant, don't panic too much. We did have a call saying, but we're gonna have to pay her forever. Okay, calm down. One, they can be on furlough until, if you want them to be, until the end of October. So you're paying minimal amounts of money. In the case we had, the woman was already 5 months pregnant. She would be having the baby in October. So she'll be on furlough until the maternity leave starts. Then she'll be on maternity leave for a year, of which 9 months is paid. And I think you said, Tori, gets claimed back at what, 103.5%? Is that right?
So all of the cost of maternity pay is repaid to you by HMRC plus a 3% compensation. And if you're really struggling, you can ask for that money from HMRC up front. So actually it leaves you in a really good position. There is no reason to be panicking about pregnant women.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's perfect. So once I explained that to them, they were like, oh, that's really good. We don't need to worry about her for a year. Great. So that was fine. So if that's happening with you, then it's really straightforward. People pregnant going off. If they're coming back, then they should be back at work. You can do the flexible furlough from the 1st of July, or you can put them on furlough till the end of October. Again, they just become like, well, people who haven't been pregnant or off on maternity leave. Okay. We've done the taking holidays, doing restructuring. Oh yeah, and then the other thing we had, when people come back to work, you might then realise that you rather they weren't at work. I'm just saying, everybody's going to get used to working back together again, okay? And there may be some people who then don't want to do that. What we had this week was somebody who was caught on the camera going through other people's desks. Now, didn't take anything, but was quite obviously going through other people's desks. We don't know why. There was no justification, was asked about it, and immediately resigned with immediate effect. So she put the letter in and said, I'm taking these holidays. Now, her employer was not happy that she was dictating the terms under which she was going, because she was actually on 7 weeks notice. And he's like, well, I wanted to work a notice. Well, you don't really. You just don't want to go on her terms. If you'd said go immediately, that would have been fine. So it's really the people who resign with immediate effect are usually the people you wanted to get rid of anyway, who you haven't managed to find a way to get rid of them, because people who have a good relationship with you don't resign with immediate effect. They just don't. They will have a conversation with you. They might resign with normal notice, but they're not going to do it with immediate effect. Okay. So if you have anybody doing that, the advantage is that you don't have to pay them their notice period. They forfeit that. You do have to pay them any outstanding holiday. Okay. So this is why we're saying you've got to get them to take holiday during furlough before they come back. But also you can say we need a handover. So in this case, she's responsible for payroll. And we're near the end of the month, and getting somebody in at short notice, it's not impossible, but it's going to be tricky. So they were going to go back and say, look, that's absolutely fine. We need a handover, and we'd really like you to run payroll. We understand it's the last time, but it's going to be difficult to find somebody. Now, I said, do that. If she says, no, I'm not doing it and refuses, we actually have a clause in our contracts that says for every day of notice that you refuse to work, we will take back 1 day of your salary. Okay. You can do that. However, I think we've invoked it once in 17 years because it obviously is very confrontational. It does escalate it quite dramatically. So we only do that if they are absolutely refusing to cooperate with us. Having told them to do that, it's all gone quiet. So I'm going to assume she said, yes, of course, I'll be happy to do that. And that's the end of it. So that's great. But just be aware that you can ask for them to do that. You're not really supposed to withhold the payment, salary payment. You will have to pay it eventually. You can't say, well, they didn't do a handover. The courts don't care about that. But you can delay paying it until, say, they do early conciliation, and then via ACAS you can say, well, if you do a handover, we'll pay it, absolutely. And ACAS says to them, do a handover. There you go. I mean, ACAS doesn't have a lot of power, but it's always good having a third party saying, yes, why wouldn't you do a handover? You want to go, do a handover. So if you do have people going, resignations are always unilateral. So if they resign, that is their decision. You can't stop them. I would strongly advise against immediate. Sorry, it sounds awful. It's just we only ever get talked to by people saying, well, they resigned last year, but we persuaded them to stay, but now we want them to go because they've done this, this, and this. It's like, okay, if people resign, take a breath, don't immediately try and persuade them to stay. And they do not have the right to say, actually, I withdraw my resignation, I'm staying. They can't do that unilaterally. That has to be, both sides have to agree that they are staying, and you do not legally have to agree. So if they've resigned, they've put it in writing, and you, after the immediate panic, go, actually, that would solve all my problems. And then they say, oh, no, actually, I've changed my mind, I want to stay. Yeah, no, sorry, it's not even accepted. We've acknowledged your resignation and you'll be leaving on this day. That's it. I wouldn't let them come back. I'm just saying the people who do that in that way are the ones you want to get rid of. The ones that you get on well with don't do those type of games with you. Okay. Okay. I think that's it for now. Oh, Liam. Okay. Liam, okay. I have been told that businesses are asking for the money back by HMRC for using the JRS and then laying, oh, okay. So HMRC is asking businesses to pay the furlough back if they've been laying staff off. Now, this is going to be interesting, Liam, because laying off is a technical term under employment law, and that is just different to redundancy, and it's different to short-time working. So whether it's, do you actually mean laying off? Do you mean making them redundant? So layoff is that they are still employed by you, but they have no work and they're only paid a guarantee payment of £28 a week. Okay. If that's the case, then yes, that is illegal because they're claiming the furlough money. They should be paid the furlough money. If, however, it's that if you are going to make them redundant, I am unaware of any ruling, and believe me, the barristers would be on it like lightning if HMRC was actually able to claim back money and say, well, this is the furlough money is to keep people employed, therefore you can't ever make them redundant while they're on furlough. That I've not seen that anywhere, and believe me, the barristers would have been on that straight away, because that's not the point. You can't then, the furlough scheme is absolutely fantastic for helping to keep people employed. That's the support for businesses, but the government is, HMRC is not able to say, well, you're not allowed to ever, no matter what your financial situation is, get rid of them if you want to have this. I mean, that just ties your hands, which is not the point of the flexible furlough thing. So I'm aware. I haven't seen that. You said here, Liam, that as one of your clients is in a world of pain from HMRC, and that the HMRC is saying that if you were going to lay them off, you should have done it before putting them on the scheme. Well, we didn't know we needed to do that back in February, which is when we would have laid them off, but we didn't know that because we didn't know coronavirus coming in lockdown and did it. So I don't see how that works. Liam, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, I have done. Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. No. It was, yeah, we've got a client, and they had two aspects of it. One, they had employees that were going off and getting work elsewhere. So we'll be paid by the company, the furlough scheme, and then we're getting a full salary by another organisation.
Yeah.
So that opened up HMRC as a flag, going, it was a fraudulent action because they're supposed to only be topping up the 20%, not a full salary on top.
No,
so that
that's
triggered
not
off
correct.
the first bit. Then
Okay.
the company took the action of making that person redundant because they'd gone and got elsewhere. And then HMRC said, well, if you've made them redundant, we want the job retention scheme because it's a job retention scheme, not a putting off a redundancy to the future. So it all got, so they're in a whole world of mess at the moment, and I've got HMRC climbing all over them.
Okay, all of that sounds incredibly wrong.
Yeah, well, this was the bit that worried me, because obviously if we were to make a redundancy and they go, if you didn't have the finances back at the beginning of March, all you're doing is using the job retention scheme as they should have signed on universal credits and you should have let them go rather than using.
I don't know what HMRC are on. I don't know what's happened there, because that is not the point. The point of furlough was to exactly stop people putting people onto universal credit and having our unemployment rate go through the roof like it has in the US. I mean, that was the whole point of it. Nobody, if that's why we said they introduced it to stop people doing exactly what HMRC is now saying. This is what you should have done. You should have got rid of them. Well, no, the government didn't want us to do that. So and that is not the guidance, Tori.
No.
It sounds to me like a specific inspector overstepping.
Yeah,
it happens. Right. And what I would do in that case is I would straight away ask for that to be sent up to a manager for somebody to review the case, because it just doesn't seem to fit with, definitely doesn't fit with the guidance on the HMRC website for sure, because there is talk even in that guidance about what to do with if you do move into a redundancy position. So it's definitely understood universally, I think, that CJRS is being used for a number of different things, one of which is to keep people in employment and they may later on be made redundant. I think it's just it's somebody not doing their job very well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more concerned that if they go bust, they owe me a lot of money. So.
Yeah, get your money now.
Yeah, exactly. So,
the thing that concerned me is that they made, well, one, everybody is absolutely allowed to go and get another job that pays 100% of the salary. That is, again, that was very clear very early on. So again, that makes no sense. 'Cause as long as it's a totally different company. Not related to the one company in any way, so not a sister company, not anything else, then that's fine. So if they were working, well, I don't know, for me, and I put them on furlough and they went and worked for Tesco, that's absolutely fine. If they then worked for me in a freelance way, that's probably not as good. But again, how would they find out? But then you've got the redundancy that they said, oh, they made that person redundant. Well, okay, you probably don't know, but were they under 2 years? Were they over 2 years?
I don't know.
Yeah, so it's like you can't usually just make somebody redundant. If they're under 2 years, you can, but you have to pay the notice period, which again you would use furlough for, which the current guidelines say you absolutely can do. And this is what is confusing. So you absolutely do need to escalate that, because that sounds like it's somebody who really doesn't get the rules at all. The own rules that HMRC have created, for goodness sake.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do is if you're all right, I'll pass your details on to them, because they might need a bit of help and a lot of help.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great.
All right, lovely. Thanks very much for that.
Good. Okay, so I think if there aren't any other questions, we'll leave it there. We'll do it, like I said, we'll do this again in 2 weeks. I'll go through restructuring again in 2 weeks. So if there is anybody on your management team that needs to be in that again, so you've got the chance to ask questions as usual, that's fine. We'll go through any refinements on the furlough scheme and anything interesting that's come up that you don't have to go through, but that we find would be useful in 2 weeks' time. Okay. Tori, anything from you before we go?
No, I think that's probably everything. I think it's just being very aware that the furlough scheme as it stands right now does finish 30th of June, and you've only got till the 31st of July to make claims for anything from the 30th of June backwards. So if you are claiming in arrears, most people are claiming in advance, but I know some people are a little bit behind on the calculations. Just be aware that after the 31st of July, you cannot make any claim for anything that happened 30th of June and before. So you do need to just make sure you've wrapped all of that up, checked over your figures, made any adjustments that you need to do, and you've got that through before the flexible furlough stuff starts, because they're basically two separate schemes.
Yeah, brilliant. Good. Well, thank you very much, everybody. I hope it gets some sun with you. I think it's stopped raining here now. Always glorious when you get up and you go, it's pouring with rain. I just want to go back to bed, please. But otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks. And any questions, just send them through by email and we'll do our best to answer them. Okay. Thank you very much. Bye.